going on, man? We are here doing a quick vlog. Your first?
My first vlog, yes.
First vlog on your new YouTube channel. We don't even have a name for it yet, do we?
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out afterwards, yeah.
Doing this super professional, making sure everything is done by the books. So, why are we here? Enlighten the audience.
We are here because I am trying to explore the world of vlogging to increase the exposure of my writing. And
took you long enough.
Yes, you've been after what? A year and a half?
At least.
At least. So I opened my mouth of this to my publisher, and my publisher said, okay, well here, why don't you do something and write about it and talk all about it? For some reason they assumed that I was an expert, which I am not, but as fate would have it, I live with an expert. So what this first YouTube production for me is going to be me asking you all of the questions that probably a lot of writers like me that have no experience would want to ask and want to know.
Right. So essentially, you have questions, so instead of just asking them to me in private, we're going to project it for all the world to see.
Exactly.
So your ignorance...
So my ignorance can be displayed for the entire...
It serves a greater purpose.
Yes.
All right. That's good.
My ignorance for all the world to see, yes.
First step's admitting you have a problem. So we're good. We're good.
Okay. Thank you for that. The first question, obviously, with your vast expertise and experience, is it practical for a writer to launch into this medium?
I mean, I think the whole thing is that it's practical for essentially everybody to get on YouTube. And the reason for that is because it's the most trafficked website online right now. Everyone is on YouTube. If you are just looking for eyeballs to go to your content, YouTube is the place to do it. You know, there are reasons why artists are on YouTube. There are reasons why people who have nothing to do with the medium of video are still on YouTube. You know, musicians post stuff to YouTube and it's just their tracks. It's because people are there. You need to go where the audience is. So the question isn't even so much, should writers be on YouTube? It's like, who shouldn't be on YouTube? The answer is really no one. Everyone should be leveraging social media in this day and age, in this connected world. And so you, like everyone else, should be, you know, using these channels to the best of your ability.
All right, here was the thing that continually, I guess I'll say, kept me in my shell. And we had discussed this a few times. When I go on Facebook to my little writing page on Facebook, I can say, yeah, here's my work, click, 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 throw up a 2,000 or 3,000 word short, put it out there, and people can read it. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, Facebook has the pictures and you can post videos, but you can also post text. Posting text on YouTube is not really what the medium is for.
Right.
So I'll say the internal paradigm I couldn't get around was, okay, I'm dealing with a written word. How can I take that written word and translate that concept into YouTube, which is completely a visual medium?
Right. And this is kind of just a smaller part of a bigger problem with writing as a medium in our connected age, is that it's very much stuck in its own antiquity, if I may be so bold, because this is a problem I face too, because I do a lot of writing as well, and I write, you know, reviews, and I also write fiction, so I'm there with you. I'm in the trenches.
And a fantastic critic.
I try. So that's the problem, is that how do you take an abstract form of media like writing and leverage it successfully in an age and a time where people have no patience and are used to strictly visual media that can be consumed at a glance, essentially. You know, that's the whole thing, is that nobody reads really anymore. You know, when you're looking up information, you go to YouTube, you look for a video tutorial because it's visual and it's quick and it's simple and it's much easier to digest.
And does anybody even use an encyclopedia?
No.
Anybody know what an encyclopedia is anymore? Yeah, so it's, you know, I guess I'm a
He's showing his age right now because
yeah, showing my age.
Why would you? Wikipedia is so much better. But I mean, that's the problem with writing, right? Is because, you know, it takes so much more investment in order to gauge quality and to just become sucked into it in the first place. You look at something like a video, you look at something like a piece of visual art, like a drawing or an illustration or graphic design, and you can instantly tell because it's a visual media. It's like, okay, you look at it and you can tell if it's good or bad, if it like appeals to your sense of aesthetics and what you like. With writing, good, bad, whatever looks exactly the same when you just glance at it. At a glance, information is virtually nothing because the medium's so abstract. So how do you leverage that media properly? You know, when at a glance information is everything in our culture right now. It's all about convenience and doing things quickly and efficiently because people are way too busy checking their Facebook statuses to really sit down and get engrossed in anything. You know, we're all about doing things quickly when writing demands more attention than that. And unfortunately, if there's a magic answer, I'm not 100% aware of it yet. It's more of you need to use YouTube as a platform to leverage yourself as a personality in order to get more people interested in what you're doing. A lot of people will do other things on YouTube in addition to writing. That's what I do because I write reviews and do critiques on cartoons and comics and books and things like that all the time. All this stuff, you know. So people are interested in me as a persona, so to speak. And then I can also mention from time to time, oh, I just did this writing thing. You can go check it out. And hopefully you get some carryover from the audience you've established to the other things you do because they like you as a person. A lot of radio personalities, which you know, do that as well. A guy on The Escapist, he has a show called Zero Punctuation. His name's Yahtzee. And he does quick video game reviews, but he also writes novels. And that's how he gets exposure for his novels. Like, he doesn't do anything on YouTube with them, but he mentions them at the end of his reviews.
So for a writer, it would be you're promoting your brand, so to speak. You as a person, and your book just happened. Yes, I'm Greg Ballin. This is my site. I'm promoting me, the writer, and I'm talking about on a camera certain things. Mm-hmm. And by the way, here's my books.
You need to provide value of some sort. The content you create on YouTube needs to be something that give something to the viewer. You know, just coming out and saying, you know, hi, I'm Greg, read my book, and that's your video.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
No one's gonna care.
That doesn't work.
So a lot of ways people do that. There's a guy named Mark Crilly, and he does comic books. He's an illustrator. And he started out on YouTube, and he's insanely popular now, is he did tutorials. Like, this is how I draw. And he would do drawing tutorials. So his videos would be answering a question that people would have. You know, if you're searching how to draw, his videos would come up. And you could watch and learn his techniques. And at the end, he'd be like, oh, by the way, you can buy my new book, Mickey Falls, which is out now through, I think it was Scholastic that published it. And that's how he gained a big audience for all of his stuff, is he leveraged the platform in a way that it's effective for it, but also increasing his own credibility. So when he said he did a book, you were interested because you saw his work and you saw that it had value. Other ways you can do that, you know, I do reviews, you can do editorials and things. You have to find a way to leverage yourself. Other things that people do, if you don't want to do that, you know, traditional publishers use YouTube for advertising all the time. You know, they make like trailers for books. I don't know if you've ever seen them on TV or whatnot.
I have actually.
And they have like ridiculous production values, you know, like there's lots of illustrations and stuff, and like they do like some After Effects basic animations with them. And you're thinking like, oh, what's this like cool like TV show? And it's like, it's a book. And it's like, interesting book trailer. So you can do things like that, again, are a visual way of driving interest to your, you know, abstract media. Other people also, if you have other people who you can work with, will do dramatic readings or like, I don't want to say visual novels, but like dramas, sort of.
Right.
Like radio plays, things like that. So they'll get voice actors, people to do sound effects and music, and someone will read your book, but you'll have all the dialogue done by voice actors voicing the characters. You'll have background music.
Kind of like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds on the radio.
Right. So people will come
together. We don't know how that worked out.
People will come together and do that, and that adds production value, and again, leverages the media by adding sound, adding voices, adding sound effects, adding music, things that you couldn't do in text, and makes it, you know, you can sit down and listen to it, and if it sounds like something appealing to you just from the way it sounds, then people will stick around and listen. And then you can say at the end of like the first chapter, if you do a whole thing for that, it'd be like, you know, you can get the full book here. So there are tons of ways you can leverage the platform. Some people even do is simply just sitting down and reading it if you have a nice reading voice, you know. Your mileage may vary with that because, again, it's kind of like the lowest common denominator in terms of work. You need to put it on your end. But something you need to understand about trying to like make it on your own on YouTube is that you're no longer just doing your one thing. You're now kind of your own boss, and you have to do a little bit of everything, because it's not just making the content, it's making sure that you know how to present it correctly, having the correct gear, designing the page so it's attractive and up to standards, so you put on a lot of different hats, just like any
Okay.
entrepreneur thing, you're your own boss.
That's a perfect segue into the next question. So, having decided, yes, I'm going to have a YouTube page, the next step is, okay, I need to get equipment. I need some kind of microphones. I need a camera. I need, obviously, editing software. What does the beginner, the novice, I'll say, not bare bones, but what's the acceptable minimum to get into this and produce something that's of reasonable quality, that someone's going to actually sit down and watch for 5 or 10 minutes?
Right. Again, it kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're going to be doing reviews, like I started out doing, you really
Right.
don't even need a camera to begin with. I reviewed cartoons, so I would just get clips of the cartoons I was talking about, relevant footage to the points I was trying to make, and I would just narrate over them. So it can be as simple as that. And for that, all you need is a decent microphone. So you can get, I can put some microphones in the description. There's like the Blue Snowball, the Samson Meteor mic. These are all like just USB mics. They plug right into your computer. You don't need any other special equipment other than the mic itself. They produce some pretty good audio quality, and then you just write your script and go, and then you just put it all together in your video editor. So it can be as simple as that. If you want to do something more like what we're doing right now with video, that's when it starts to get a lot more expensive, because video cameras are exponentially more costly than getting good audio from a microphone. A microphone, like a high-end one, to get something like really good, will top out at like $200, $300 at the very most. But you can mostly get by for vlog content around the $50 to $100 range. If you want to do the same thing on the camera side of things, to get a really decent camera is probably going to start around $300 at the very minimum. It can go up all the way to $5,000 to $10,000 depending on how ridiculous you want to get. Wow. So getting pro video is ridiculous, and unfortunately we're in a transition period right now where we're moving from 1080p being the standard to 4K. So, even if you sink a lot of money into a camera now, within the next 5 years or less,
It'll be
4K is going to be
obsolete.
the new standard. You're going to have to invest again. So if anyone's out there and wants to do high-end video, I would suggest buying mid-range now, because you're going to be forced to upgrade in the next few years as this new standard starts to replace 1080p. Because that's going to be even higher resolution, it's going to require more gear. And right now, buying a 4K camera is pretty ridiculous. However, there is some silver lining to all this, and that is your smartphone in your pocket. If you've bought a smartphone within the last 2 years, a Galaxy S4, Galaxy S5, iPhone 5, iPhone 5S, or any of, phones from LG or Motorola that are pretty much the equivalents, it comes with a really decent video camera. It'll shoot 1080p. It's not going to be the best sensor, the best image quality, but cameras and phones are pretty much at the point where they can replace dedicated point-and-shoot cameras for $100, $200 you buy by themselves. The only thing they lack is any sort of decent zoom. If you look at point-and-shoot cameras out now, they all advertise their zoom, because they have these big zoom lenses that can zoom in 30, 40 times, magnification. Smartphone cameras can't do that because of the compact body. However, if you're shooting a vlog like this, you don't need to zoom. So it doesn't matter. There's no reason to buy a point and shoot over your smartphone camera if you're just going to be doing vlogs like we're doing right now.
Got it.
So if you have a camera on your phone, on a decent phone, start with that, because you already bought it. No reason to go buy more hardware. You're definitely going to want to get a new microphone to go with it, because cell phone speakers and mics are awful.
Yes.
Again, you got to squeeze in everything into that one body, so sacrifices are made, and audio quality usually pretty bad. So again, a $40 to $50 microphone and you're good to go.
Okay, and I know from us sharing the same dwelling and watching you work down here once in a while, that just recording the camera audio, just making the actual vlog is only the beginning. The whole other piece that seems equally as important is the actual editing and putting it all together.
Right.
Why don't you give us a little bit about that, about how complicated that is?
So editing isn't so much complicated as it is tedious. I loathe editing.
I watched you last night. That was complicated.
Editing this video is gonna be shitty because I just don't want to do it. That's usually how it goes because I have 3 other videos I have to edit this week after this one. So this is from today till Friday. It's Monday today. That's gonna be my week. It's just editing videos. The biggest obstacle in editing video is just learning your software. Luckily, if you're just doing simple vlogs, 99% of all the features that your editor has, you're probably not going to even need to use. It's just cutting clips, stitching them together, and syncing up your audio. The 3 big things you got to keep in mind. If you want to get more fancy, you can do some basic animations, add some basic transitions, but usually simpler the better. If you look at big pro vloggers, like Ray William Johnson and Revision 3, I don't even know because I don't watch the big vloggers on YouTube, but they keep it really simple, just simple jump cuts and have a decent camera and good audio. In terms of what you'd want to get, just like everything else, software runs the gamut in terms of features and what you need. All your computers, whether you have a Mac or PC, you're going to be able to get either Windows Movie Maker or iMovie. They're both free. As long as you keep your expectations super low and want to do things really simple, those should be fine. If you just want to have some clips going in and out over your audio, those programs will do that just fine. The problem with those programs for me, when I used to use them, because I started with them, is that they usually only limit you to 1 or 2 video tracks, which are basically just layers where you can stack visual information. For me, I'll usually have a filter on top of my videos to kind of prevent copyright ID, which is a whole other mess of crap we can talk about. I'll have a character on there that kind of represents myself animating and moving around. I'll have other titles and transitions and graphics popping in as well, and each of those needs to be on its own track. So because these are really low-end programs, they don't usually have enough tracks for me to do my videos the way I want. So I grew out of them very quickly and needed to look at something else. And the big players in this space are Final Cut Pro on the Mac, and then Adobe Premiere Pro, and Sony Vegas. And those all cost hundreds of dollars. In the case of Premiere Pro, it's a subscription-only service now, so it's $50 a month to use that software. Yeah. And then Final Cut's actually the cheapest. It's only $300, but you have to buy Mac, which is, $1,500 plus to get one that actually have enough chops to do video editing.
Right.
So, pick your poison and where you want to go with that. Definitely get your feet wet before you start syncing things into this, because a lot of people, say they want to do these things, but then they actually try. And they're like, you know what, this isn't for me. And then you've wasted all this money on gear.
The one thing I've learned in the last couple of weeks, getting this video set up and then watching what you do, is there's a whole heck of a lot more to doing this than I thought. I do crappy hunting things on Facebook, and it's just, here's the camera. I'm out here in the woods chasing deer today. I mean, you've seen them, and wow, and it's hysterical because there's always something I'm doing wrong. But to actually go in, sit down, record something, watch what you did to edit it, put the different tracks in, sync the audio up, it's technically, it's impressive. And I'm sure, anybody starting it out, I mean, is the learning curve really slow, or is it after a couple of times for you, was it a quick learning curve? Was it a slow learning curve?
I mean, for me, I might not be the best example because I've dabbled in, programs like this a lot. I learned Photoshop back in high school, so I'm kind of used to the whole manipulating data and information and stuff like that from a creative angle on the computer. So when it came to video, just all right, it's kind of similar, adding tracks, just layers, but the layers move,
right?
Like Photoshop. So there was less of a difficulty curve for me. If you're coming into it completely blind, it's probably going to be really jarring because it's not Microsoft Word. There's a lot more things going on. But the important thing to realize is that you can jump into something like Final Cut, you can jump into something like Sony Vegas and get super overwhelmed because there's just so much stuff. It's a professional program and there's a lot going on in it, but you have to realize just take it one step at a time. And the great thing about things like YouTube is everything's on there. So if you need to look up tutorials, you just punch in what you need. Like today, I started editing a video, and I was like, I don't know how to do color correction. I need to color correct this. Just color correction in Premiere Pro, popped right up. I watched a video, and there it was. So, I mean...
YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to take it one step at a time, you know.
Right. And I also want to add that you're going down to a convention. They're flying you down to actually speak on this.
Right.
So, we're pretty lucky to have you for free.
I have a tiny bit of credibility.
A tiny bit, yeah. Well, more than a tiny bit. But based on your success and your experience, what are some of the pitfalls that a newbie should avoid at all costs? What is like the huge, big things not to do? We've talked about what to do. What is the big things? Okay, A, B, C, D. Don't do this, and for God's sakes, don't do this.
I think the most important things to keep in mind when you're starting, it's funny because I'm going to tell you a bunch of things. I'm going to tell you something else at the end that overrides everything. so everything is about to be taken with a grain of salt. Don't sink money into a bunch of stuff before you've done some dry runs. Definitely, because again, I've done this many times. I'm like, oh, I want to start making music. I spend like $200 on buying gear for making music, and then I sit down, I'm like, I hate this. And I have all this shit that I can't do anything with anymore. It's like, well, that sucked. I probably should have just tried with no money stuff first and made sure I actually was interested in it. Because I find personally, a lot of the times I'll want to do something, but don't actually want to do it. I'll want to do it. So definitely make sure that the passion's there, because, you know, no one's going to tell you at like 3 a.m. to finish your friggin' video because you told everyone's going to be out tomorrow. You have to like kick your own ass in that regard. So if you don't have passion, you're going to sputter out and die. So you got to make sure that there's something inherent in you that is keeping you going. So definitely make sure that you have the passion first. And that means doing some just basic things, some test runs with whatever you have. Don't sink any money into it unless you know that this is something you really want to pursue. That'd be the first thing I'd recommend. Second, do some research into cleaning up your audio. There's a free program called Audacity that you can download, and that's going to let you clean up your audio. You can get rid of background noise that your microphone might be picking up. You can go in and edit out all like your breathing, like, cause you know, I'm stopping here like, you know, when you can breathe in your audio and you're clicking noises and stuff like that. If you don't edit that out, it's super annoying and everybody notices. My first videos, everyone was on my ass about that because I went in and didn't know shit. So I just was like, oh, let's make a video. Only 3 people are going to see it. Now that video has 220,000 views, and it was no work done at all, and it's horrible. It's the bane of my existence.
And I'm sure they've all let you know how horrible it is.
So, you know, you can't take that back.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really simple, but makes things a lot better, is going in to your audio after you've recorded it, taking out all the breathing, taking out, you know, the mouth noises, the pauses, getting rid of your verbal clutter. Another part of that is write a script if you're starting out. Unless you're doing like a conversation like we are, when like it's natural dialogue going back and forth, sitting there and just trying to talk off the top of your head for most people is very difficult unless you're very well like read on the subject you're speaking about, because you're going to have like, you know. So in all my videos, when I review something, I always write a script. And I read off the script. So that way, less blah, 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 and I can stay on point. I don't ramble, which I've probably rambled quite a bit in this video right now because I'm not doing anything of what I just said. Now that I've said all of those things, don't let what you can't do stop you from doing what you can do. If you have no gear and you have the passion, start. Because if nothing else, you get practice. You know, that's pretty much what I did when I started. I had a crappy microphone from like 2004 that we had bought with like your second computer.
Oh, yeah.
That was my microphone. And I had no gear. I was doing my first videos in Flash, even though you're not supposed to do videos like that in Flash. But it's what I had, and I wanted to do it. And I learned things from that. Things I shouldn't do, but that's a learning experience regardless. So once I got the new tools, I could use them more effectively. So if you're a little kid, if you're younger, you have no money, and you want to get started and do these things, and you have no gear other than what's just lying around the house, use it. Do it.
Okay, time is clickingly running away fast. Let me get one more quick question in. Real quick. What are 2 good ways for somebody to build viewership?
Be honest is the number one thing you can be. Too often you will see celebrities and stuff companies will pay celebrities millions and millions of dollars to do these things online, and it fails horribly because nobody cares. And the reason for that is people too often treat YouTube like a television station, because you call your page as a channel. So people will treat it like a television channel, and that's not what it is. YouTube is more like Facebook than TV. It's a social network. People go there to make connections, and people expect honesty. So when you're presenting yourself, people usually have a persona. They kind of like amplify their personality and make sure that they're putting their best foot forward, but they're not pretending to be someone they aren't, because people can detect that really quickly. So be honest when you're presenting yourself. And the second thing I would recommend to get viewership is to engage in your community. You're doing something, you obviously have an audience. In this case, you're writing. So engage with other writers. There are tons of people on YouTube who are going to be doing vlogs and stuff about writing. Get involved. Look for things. Talk to people. Make connections. You can always do collaborations with other people sometimes if you make friends that way. I've met tons of people that I'm possibly going to go move with and live with next year by doing that, talking to people and meeting people in my social circle about whatever my stuff is.
And I think the one thing you had mentioned too is rule of etiquette number one: don't post your feed on somebody else's channel.
Right.
Something like that.
Don't aggressively self-promote. The last thing anyone wants to see in the comment section of a video is a link to your video. Actually, now YouTube's new comment system, it'll block those as spam, and you have to have the commenter approve it in order for it to even show up in the comments. So if you're doing that to a bunch of videos, 99% of them won't ever even make it to the public feed. So the best way to promote yourself in the comment section is to act intelligent and leave intelligent comments. Because a lot of people just be like, this sucks, you're gay, go die. And that's like your comment section. You're just like, ugh,
And
But if
12-year-olds do leave comments on YouTube.
Oh yes, be ready for that. But if you have someone intelligent leaving an interesting addition to the conversation that you've talked about, it's a breath of fresh air. And if they do that repeatedly, all of a sudden you're interested in this person and you go see, are they making anything? Because this is someone that sounds like they know what they're talking about. And you click through, you look at their profile, and that's how you can gain viewership that way. Gaining respect and earning clout by just being honest and being an active participant in the conversation.
All right, excellent. Well, we have about a minute and 50 seconds left, so I want to thank you. Hopefully, people like me who have watched this will have learned something constructive. I know I have. Thanks again, Tom.
Yeah, no problem, man.